Honorable Minister for Tourism.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the first reading of a bill shortly entitled St. Lucia Tourism Authority Amendment.
St. Lucia Tourism Authority Amendments.
Honorable Minister for Tourism.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move for the suspension of Standing Order number 48-2 to allow the bill to go through its remaining stages at this sitting.
Honorable members, the question is that Standing Order 48-2 be suspended in order to allow the bill to go through its meeting. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the second reading of a bill shortly entitled St. Lucia Tourism Authority. Mr. Speaker, this amendment is a very simple one, but prepares the St. Lucia Tourism Authority to expand its operations in order to collect the proposed tourism levy fee, Mr. Speaker. The whole intention here, Mr. Speaker, is to give the Tourism Authority the capacity to raise its own funds. And we would have seen earlier in this sitting of Parliament the amendment to the Value-Added Tax Bill, Act rather, Mr. Speaker, which reduces the VAT rate by 7.3%. So by amending the St. Lucia Tourism Authority, Mr. Speaker, what we do is, first of all, we streamline the Tourism Authority to have a laser focus on marketing. So previously the authority focused, Mr. Speaker, a little bit on product development, Mr. Speaker, but now what we're doing is ensuring that the bill makes allowance for it to focus on marketing. Mr. Speaker, this though is not done in isolation, but it is done, Mr. Speaker, in consideration of a number of the other tourism entities. So the Ministry of Tourism, for example, will focus on policy development and also to focus on product development. Mr. Speaker, Village Tourism Incorporated, an institution which will be launched later this year, will also help to advance the tourism landscape by enhancing the capacity of locals to participate more meaningfully, especially at the entrepreneurial level in tourism. Mr. Speaker, the amendment today also makes allowance for the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Tourism to now be a fixed member of the board, Mr. Speaker, so that it makes allowance for greater levels of accountability, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Tourism Authority will be able to collect its own funds, and it does, Mr. Speaker, allow the board to plan for its marketing on a longer term basis. Mr. Speaker, as we contemplate the reopening of the tourism sector, this is absolutely crucial when one bear in mind that the country will be facing increased competition, Mr. Speaker, as a tourist destination, because many islands are going to be competing for the recovery of the tourism business in post-COVID. And so, Mr. Speaker, having a very small budget within the context of Caribbean tourism budgets will in fact, Mr. Speaker, require the Tourism Authority to be laser focused, to be nimble, and to also ensure, Mr. Speaker, that the board optimize the very small budget in comparison to bigger destinations, Mr. Speaker. And so, Mr. Speaker, while our budget is small, Mr. Speaker, we should not be discouraged from the tremendous opportunities for innovation and for advancement in marketing. Mr. Speaker, this bill also makes allowance for the board, Mr. Speaker, to be the group that presides over applications by members of the accommodation sector to register under the new Tourism Authority Act, Mr. Speaker, which will make allowance for the collection of the tourism levy. But, Mr. Speaker, to allow for the board to collect its own funds is certainly a windfall moment, Mr. Speaker, in the tourism marketing of our country. And so, Mr. Speaker, it's late. I don't want to go on for too long. The amendment is before the House, and I will stop here to allow the members of the House to opine on what is being proposed. Thank you.